We're gonna watch the 2nd edition 40k Ultramarines versus Tyranids. There's a lot of artwork and kit bashes. Ah, okay. I'm gonna turn this down just slightly, but if it's not loud enough, let me know.
The Tyranids unleashed thousands of spores above the vital polar fortresses.
I didn't know it was gonna be like this,
homeworld
but
of Macragge. Entrusting the fate of the world to the First
Good.
Company, Marneus Calgar pursued the remnants of High Fleet Behemoth towards the edge of the Macragge system. After defeating the Hive Fleet at great cost, Calgar's surviving ships turned about and roared back
it's a
to
narrative
Macragge.
battle
But would he
report.
be in time to save the beleaguered defenders of the polar garrisons?
Oh, that's a
I'm Ed.
blueberry.
Welcome to Minisodes. And in this video, my Tyranids are going up against Matthew's Ultramarines.
We're
going
back
to
in
be playing
1995.
1500 points of 2nd edition
Volume good?
40k.
Okay.
This is a narrative battle, and our intent is to recreate one of the coolest
I haven't gotten to
pieces
see
of
one of these
background
yet.
from when we were younger and just starting out on our hobby journey. Let's take a look at our forces. My army commander is a Hive Tyrant armed with a
I
barbed
love the
strangler,
colors.
bone sword, and lash whip. A Hive Tyrant can take 3 biomorphs, and I've chosen Acid Blood, a hardened
That's
carapace,
fun, Ash.
and optic membranes. The Carnifex, or Screamer Killer,
Like the-
is a living engine of
The coloring, especially on that last one, reminds me a lot of Slimer? What am I thinking of? That green is so vibrantly green. It's like cartoony green in a very specific way. I'm thinking of a very specific green guy. Kind of like Nickelodeon ooze, but earlier than that. But I can't think of who the green guy is. What's a Warhammer used to be painted? I think it is very sick. I like it quite a lot. Super cartoony. Yeah. It is very, very neat. I like it a lot. Slimer from Ghostbusters is valid. I think that is who I'm thinking of. Yeah.
membranes. The Carnifex, or
Gremlin
Screamer
green,
Killer, is a living engine of destruction. I've given it the Biomorph's optic membranes and the voltage field for an additional saving throw of 4+. Now for the Griblies. A brood of 7 gene stealers. 20 termagants armed
They
with
all
flesh
look kind of
borers.
goofy, but in a fun
5
way.
Tyranid warriors armed with bone swords.
They're
They
so
all have a
red
hardened
too.
carapace, boosting their default 5+ save to a 3+. And lastly, 4
No.
Tyranid warriors, 3 with death spitters and 1 with a venom
Very
cannon.
comic book.
They have the biomorph Adrenaline Sacs, allowing them to run and shoot with no penalties once per game. Let's take a look at Matthew's list.
My Ultramarines force is split into 2 halves. The largest component
Oh my god, they're
is
so
from the First
chunky.
Company. This is the force that is holding the Polar Fortress against the invaders. Their leader is Captain Saul Invictus with his plasma blaster. Though other than that, he has no additional war gear. He leads a
Oh, their
bodyguard
helmets
of
are so
5
chunky. I love
Terminators.
it.
His special rule allows these Terminators to each take a war gear card.
They're
So I
Terminators?
chose to give the assault cannon armor-piercing rounds for a save modifier of -6. The sergeant has a bionic arm, giving him +1 strength in melee. Next is a veteran squad consisting of a flamer and a missile launcher. The squad was split into 2 combat squads for this game, one led by a librarian,
I love how
Codicia,
you just painted the
another by
base
Chaplain
green,
Cassius,
and you were like, yeah,
who was
that's
pretty
great.
important since he mitigates the
Goblin
fear of
green
active
bases.
terrorists. Plus,
Same
a
brain
reroll
chat.
on leadership tests. A twin-linked heavy bolter tarantula rounds off this half of the army. The second half of the relief force is led
The second
by
40k
Marneus
box
Calgar,
set tactical
master
squad
of the
paint as
Ultramarines.
veterans. Okay.
He is accompanied by a 5-man combat squad of tactical marines, a dreadnought armed with a power fist and multi-melter, a tech marine, and finally, a hero we named Pablo Doublehard. He carries
Pablo
a vortex
Doublehard?
grenade, a sacred relic of Macragge, only to be used in desperate times. You may recognize Pablo from one of Ed's recent videos. He kindly gifted it to me to add to my army.
Every model used to look like it was fighting off
This
on a
board
golf
represents
field.
the Lower Penetorium, the final fallback point for the First Company defenders of the northern Polar Fortress.
He's hard twice.
As we were playing one of the most
I do know what a
iconic
dreadnought
last
is, yeah.
stands in 2nd edition 40k, we agreed to play Tyranid Attack. This mission allows the Tyranids to bring back destroyed broods, individuals or support units in the next turn, representing the terrifying onslaught of a Tyranid planetary invasion. It also extends the game from 4 turns.
Hold on, I just got the sweetest text from my dad. I have to reply. He said, would it fit in your schedule to go out to eat tonight to celebrate your new YouTube status? Yes, sir, it would. Oh, oh, that means so much. That they like get how big of a deal that is to me. Oh, I know they don't fully understand like what I do. I'll tell my dad you guys love him. Oh, that was very sweet of them. I try my best to explain what I do, but I'm probably not the best at explaining that I talk to a bunch of people all day. And I make content, but oh, he's not. I yap with my mom a lot about it too. We talked about it before I started stream today, and I was just so excited. I don't know. Oh, thanks. So, but I love my parents so dearly, and like my brother texting me today, they must have told him about it too, which is so funny. Of course, he's this good. He has YouTube Premium. Oh, absolutely, Nomad. I will. Absolutely. You guys don't know this, and he would probably hate me for talking about it, but one of the reasons I moved back home is because he got diagnosed with a type of leukemia, and it's not fatal. It's manageable, but I moved back home so I could spend more time with them, because I suddenly realized just like how important it is. So, but he's doing good these days, so you know, don't worry about it, but hug your loved ones, etc. So, I just really love them, and it means a lot that they support what I do. Ugh. Not me crying in the club right now. Oh, I'm glad I have a community I feel like I can share that with. Let's get started again.
To 6. Now in our game, we would have 3 randomized entrances for the Tyranid reinforcements to enter from. Matthew and his Ultramarines would start with roughly 1,000 points on the table, but at the beginning of turn 4, a relief force would arrive. Would they be in time to rescue the remnants of the First Company? Or would High Fleet Behemoth deal as grievous a blow to the Ultramarines as they did in the future history books? Oh, and as a final aside,
Do I think this will be a YouTube vid? Maybe, if there's enough to react to. Could I bump the volume up a bit? Absolutely, I could.
we agreed that our game would instead last
Is that enough?
5 turns, and we would not be using the Tyranid random events table. As my strategy rating was far lower than that of the Ultramarines, I deployed my army first, positioning warrior broods on each flank, with the Carnifex and Hive Tyrant bringing up the centre. Matthew deployed his thin blue line, making the most of the hastily constructed defences. The Terminators and Captain Invictus deployed behind the barricades, whilst the veterans with the missile launcher, along with the Codicia, were set up on the left flank. Cassius and the combat squad armed with a flamer deployed in the centre, ready to react to any holes in the line that might need shoring up once the Tyranids made contact. The Tarantula and Servitor took up a commanding view of the Penetorium, ready to spray heavy bolter fire into the onrushing swarm. With Matthew's Ultramarines now deployed, I infiltrated my Gene Stealers onto the mid-board, out of sight.
They look really cool.
Behind a cargo
I'm
container.
glad they did all this.
With virtually all of his weapons out of range, Matthew wisely placed his 3 squads on Overwatch. The Tarantula battery had range on the termagants and let rip into the tide of critters. Rolling 2 lots of sustained fire dice, Matthew scored 6 hits and blew 6 of.
What is Overwatch kind of like reserve? Chat, is this how small / sparse terrain was in second? That's a good question. I noticed that it looked pretty different. Overwatch means that anything moving in range gets automatically shot, if you remember correctly. Ah. Interesting.
The shrieking Xenos into pieces. With shooting over, we entered the psychic phase. The Codicea reached out with his mind and sensed the malignant presence of the gene stealers lurking behind the container. Matthew played Smite with ultimate force and burst 2 of the horrifying creatures apart.
Wait, do they still use those little, like, what would that be called? Like a round coaster thingy? Templates? No? Oh, what a shame. I kind of love that. They use them in Horus Heresy. Oh. No more cards, no more templates. Rip Psychic Phase. That was so fun. They caused so many arguments. Interesting, okay. I could see that. Templates could be super cheesed. Yeah, that makes sense. They do look cool though.
In a shower of gore and etheric lightning. Sensing a presence in the warp, the Hive Tyrant attempted to duel with the Codicea, but Matthew brought this to an end by nullifying the power.
Okay, I want to see if I can read those cards.
But Matthew brought this to an end by
You can play this card to engage an enemy psyker of your choice in a battle of wills. Both players roll a d6 and add the mastery levels of their respective psykers to their roll. The player with the highest total wins the player with the highest total wins the duel and drives a psychic power out of the mind of the loser. The winner can immediately choose a psychic power card at random from the hand of the losing player and discard it for the remainder of the battle. If the 2 scores are equal, the duel is a draw and has no effect on either psyker. Nullify. This card is used to cancel a psychic power anywhere on the battlefield. Play either when an enemy uses a psychic power or against a psychic power that is already in play. Roll a d6, 1 to 3 nullify fails, 1 to 3 nullify fails, 4 to 6 nullify works. A psyker attempting to nullify a psychic power used by a psyker with a higher mastery level deducts -1 from the dice roll. A psyker attempting to nullify a psychic power used by a lower level psyker adds +1 to the dice roll. This feels like you're playing a card game on top of a war game. Is it still? It's not still like this, right? You don't have all these cards. You rolled a dice to see if the template would drift and people would argue the direction they actually moved. Oh. So Magic stole blue players casting counterspell from 2nd edition. Not like this. We have different cards. Okay. They're not as prevalent. Ah, okay. Interesting. Because that does feel like a Magic card to me. Like you're doing something a little bit closer to a TCG than a war game.
Nullifying the power.
Can I say, I hope this doesn't come off the wrong way. These look more like models for kids. Does that make sense? It feels like as Warhammer has gotten older, the models themselves have grown up in their complexity and kind of intensity. I'm assuming as the fan base has grown up as well. It's the color scheme. I think also they're a little bit blockier, and that feels more like a kid thing. So, 2nd edition was very much for kids. That makes sense. Yeah. The game grew up with the audience 100%. Cool. I wouldn't say they're necessarily derpy but like they do have a little bit more of a cartoony feel to them that is not supposed to be an insult or something bad about it at all. I quite like them, but yeah, it seems like they leaned pretty heavily into the grim dark, and not just that, but the iconography. And I assume that, their sculptors got better and yada yada yada. It's a lot to do with the paint job on those specific units too. Yeah, the art looks like it goes really, really hard. They were limited in the cost of how they injection molded things. That makes sense too. Detail creep is a thing. I hadn't thought about it as like detail creep. Yeah, but that makes sense. Because one of the things that I am struck with about Warhammer models is just how detailed they are, how intensely detailed they are, and how cool that is. I mean, in many places, the visual language can get, not many places, but in some places, the visual language gets a little blurry because of how many details there are. But for the most part, the models that I've seen, it works really well together. It just gives you more to look at rather than looking too cluttered for the eye. But that's just the models that I've seen so far. So, if you look at toys back then, they were quite primitive too. Yeah. Even back then, Games Workshop were the kings of miniatures. That makes sense. Also has a lot to do with the technology of casting the models and how more detail can be done more cheaply. That's what I figured too, was technology changed. So, yeah. But, anyway, I just wanted to mention that I noticed.
Causing 3 wounds, none of which I managed to save on 6s. A 4th Gene Stealer was struck by a crack missile and scattered itself across the walls and ceiling of the Penetorium. Brandishing their bone swords, my second brood of warriors bounded onwards, the pounding of their chitinous hooves audible above the cacophony of bolter fire and shrieks of dying Tyranids. In my shooting phase, the warriors that had been plasmed by the hated Invictus deployed.
I'm sorry, but the Tyranids do kind of look like they have horse teeth. Do you know what I mean? GW started by selling D&D, like D&D minis. That makes sense. I assume that Wizards of the Coast wouldn't have done that in-house at first. They're bucktooth, yeah.
Deployed their adrenaline sacs, allowing me to shoot with no penalty after running. The venom cannon struck the Terminator Sergeant, and after some fun messing around with the Thud Gun salvo template and a D12, I failed to wound the veteran warrior. In the psychic phase, my Hive Tyrant played Energy Drain, bringing the phase to an abrupt end. I wasn't keen on getting smited again. Matthew took some time to consult the Codex Astartes.
The turns seem very quick, but maybe it's just how they're telling it narratively.
For some guidance on the most prudent course of action. He then redeployed his Terminators into the center and ran Cassius and his squad behind the barricades, doubtless to bring the flamer forward in readiness for the fierce fighting to come.
They're just kind of hanging.
Then roared into life, and despite jamming twice, 2 armor-piercing rounds punched into my Carnifex. With a -6 modifier against it, I needed to make my save on a 9, which I failed. Uh-oh. Matthew rolled a 10 for damage, and with that, my screen...
Wait a second! That's not a D6, buddy. I thought they only use D6. Other dice? Is that that's not a thing in 10th edition, is it? They used a few specialty dice. Damage was bigger in 2nd edition. Okay. 2nd edition had better, more complex rules. Interesting. Okay. It's all D6s all the way down. Okay. Yes, Lord Captain, we used to add them numbers and not count per die. Wow. Okay, I just wanted to double check that it wasn't something in these days too, since I don't know the rules for these days as well.
Halo was slain. Oh, that was brutal. But wait! My voltage field. I rolled a 4. Oh, sorry, Matthew. The Carnifex was back in business. The rest of
Wait, I gotta go read what a voltage field does. Sorry.
Brutal. But wait!
This creature is surrounded by a coruscating field of electrical power that dissipates the energy of hits and overloads force fields in close proximity. The creature gains an additional saving throw of 4 or more on a D... This sounds like D&D. A saving throw of 4 or more on a D6, which is unaffected by saving throw modifiers. If the creature is within 4 inches of a force field of any kind, such as a conversion or displacer field, the voltage field will burn it out on a roll of 4 or more on a d6, rendering the force field inoperative for the rest of the game. In addition to these effects, the surge of electricity give the creature a +1 bonus to its strength characteristics in hand-to-hand combat. So he got hit, but this dissipates it by adding a saving throw of 4 or more on a d6. So they did the opposite thing of D&D, where like D&D started in its wargaming roots and moved into RPG, and this started in its wargaming roots with some RPG stuff and then moved more into wargaming. Okay, that's really interesting. I didn't know that they kind of had these opposite evolutions almost. Wow.
My voltage field. I rolled a 4. Oh, sorry, Matthew. The Carnifex was back in business. The rest of the Terminators fired
First edition had a game master? That's so cool.
into the Termagants, cutting down 4 of the critters. Determined to slay the apoplectic orb once and for all, Matthew fired his missile launcher into the Screamer Killer. That's a hit.
A 6!
And a wound. Another -6 modifier with a crack missile, which I failed. Voltage field time. The hive mind is unstoppable. The combat squad on the left flank rapid-fired everything it had into the remaining Gene Stealer. Matthew clearly was taking no chances. The Tarantula's hydraulics whined as its targeting matrix lacked
Hold on. We gotta go back just a little bit. I gotta check
no
something. Hold on.
chances. The Tarantula's hydraulic
Yeah. Is that guy dummy thick or am I crazy? Why is he dummy thick? You knew I'd say something? Like, what is going on there? It's in my Warhammer game? GM did cool scenarios like adding battlefield effects and even controlling neutral armies? Ooh. That's a servitor? Oh. Oh. Oh.
whined as its targeting matrix latched onto the Tyranid warriors.
That was
Their
wild.
armored carapaces absorbed a good deal of firepower, but one warrior was torn asunder by mass reactive shells. In the psychic phase, Matthew didn't have enough warp charge to do anything, and neither did I. Tyranid attack allows me to bring back units, so long as I don't roll a 1. 10 termagants surged on from my board edge and scuttled towards the fighting. And
Wow,
3
he just has
warriors
so
hoved
many.
into view in the entrance nearest the Ultramarines' defenses, thundering towards their left flank, intent on putting as much pressure on Matthew.
I will say it might just be because of how it's filmed, but for some reason, and actually no, I don't think it is. I think it has a lot to do with terrain. The movement of battle is easier for me as a newcomer to read and understand on this specific battlefield than it is on the ones that I've seen in like 40K and 40 minutes. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, I can visually understand what's happening on the battlefield better here than I did in others. So recycling your dead units is a special rule for this battle type. Things pop out more. There's less clutter, yeah. But I think like the clutter, you know, it kind of serves a mechanical purpose. The 40 and 40 maps are made for looks, not function. Yeah, they're made to look cool, not to be easily visually readable. To like a newcomer like me, I guess. It's less vertical. Oh, that's a good observation, Grace. It definitely does feel less vertical. But the minis are also clean and bright, and the terrain is fairly subdued and minimal. Those who watch the vids at least have a decent foundation. Yeah, I'm probably pretty... I'm an outlier for being somebody who watches it despite not really knowing how to play the game. But it is, like, still really fun to watch their stuff. You have a special edition of Ashes of the Imperium? Ooh.
You as possible. The Bone Sword warriors with the armored carapaces advanced, looming over the First Company veterans manning the barricades. The Carnifex charged into combat with the two Terminators. And the Termagants moved up to get the Marines within range of their flesh borers. My two remaining warriors, their adrenaline sacs
Yeah, like it's just
dry,
really easy to see what's
stayed
happening,
put,
I guess.
ready to fire the Death Spitter and Venom Cannon into the Terminators.
It's also just much brighter,
In my
yeah.
shooting phase, the Termagants loosed a deluge of boring beetles into the Terminators, causing 2 wounds, but failing to penetrate their tactical dreadnought armor. Now it was the Warriors' turn, again firing into the Terminators. The Death Spitter missed, but the Venom Cannon struck the Assault Cannon Terminator, killing him in a supersonic blast of electrical energy and corrosive poison. Cassius was also struck, but the Emperor protects. The High Tyrant fired his barbed strangler, a truly horrific weapon, hitting the Terminator Sergeant, but failing to wound.
I love the
In
dramatic
the
zoom
psychic
in on the
phase,
dice.
Matthew's
This is
Codicea
really well
attempted
made.
to smite the Warrior Brood, but fortunately
The Psyker unleashes a devastating psychic attack on an area within 24 inches. The player places the 2-inch smite template anywhere on the table within 24 inches of the librarian. Yada yada yada. Every model covered by the template is hit. Any models partially covered are hit on a d6 roll of 4, 5, or 6. If a vehicle is hit by smite, one randomly selected crewman will be affected. That's so funny. Models must pass a something test on a 2d6 with a -2 modifier to their leadership characteristic. If the test is failed, the victim dies immediately regardless of how many wounds it has. Whoa. Armor saving throws do not protect against smite. And then it just gets nullified. Leadership. Ah, okay.
I'd drawn the Nullified card, which took care of that. In the close combat phase, the Carnifex
vehicles had
brought
crew.
low 2 storied heroes of the Imperium.
Oh
I
no.
then made a follow-up move, bringing the Carnifex within striking distance of Saul Invictus, captain of the First Company.
Not the
Things
captain.
were getting serious for the embattled Ultramarines.
My boys, my blueberry boys.
At the top of turn 3, having cleared the drop zone of Tyranid forces and battled their way
This moves
down into
very
the fortress,
fast. I guess because of
Ultramarines
their
led by
editing,
Marnius
but-
Calgar himself entered the Penetorium. But would they be in time to save their brethren from annihilation? Matthew moved his Flamer Marine closer to the wounded warrior, priming his weapon once more, whilst Cassius closed with the surviving Termagant, eager to batter it with his Crozius. The Codicea, seeing his brethren fall to the bone swords of the warriors, leapt back into cover. This would at least give him a small bonus in a future fight phase.
He looks kind of goofy.
The
I'm not gonna
Dreadnought,
lie.
bellowing oaths of vengeance, used the heavy flamer setting on the multi-melter, vaporizing 3 of the hated Gene Stealers. The rest of the Marines cut another 2 of them down with disciplined fire. The Codicea snapped a bolt round into a wounded warrior, slaying it and sending the massive creature crashing over the barricade in a shower of ichor. The Tarantula, its barrels glowing red hot, thundered into the warriors at point-blank range. Matthew could really roll those sustained fire dice, and with D4 damage apiece, killed another 2 warriors in a torrent of shells. The surviving veteran
I want to pause and say this is helping me understand. I know that this is like a 2nd edition game, but I feel like hearing it in the narrative battle report style is really good. Maybe I should watch one of these for 10th edition. I'm assuming they probably have them.
coolly loaded a crack missile and launched it into the Hive Tyrant, wounding it and doing an impressive 7 damage. With only 5 wounds on its profile, the Tyranid leader was well and truly dead.
Mini war
A
game.
smoking crater in its torso, the Hive Tyrant collapsed. Matthew's flamer incinerated another warrior.
Yeah, it's really
and bolt
great.
of fire from the rest of the squad wounded the warrior with the venom cannon. In the close combat phase, Cassius fumbled spectacularly against the remaining Termagant, having to rely on his brother veteran to finish the job. In the psychic phase, neither of us were able to act with the cards we were dealt.
Okay. Midwinter.
In my 4th turn, a fresh brood of Gene Stealers along with another Hive Tyrant, whose multiplying swarms of Termagants did swarm upon him, surged into the chamber. Above ground, the Tyranid forces were all but spent, at awful cost to the Imperium. Urged on by alien spite, my swarm pressed on. The 2 surviving Gene Stealers leapt into the tactical Marines, whilst the second wave of Termagants moved into range of Cassius's veterans.
It feels like they're
My
never
surviving
ending.
warrior, dripping with
Where do they
ichor
keep
from its
coming
bolter
from?
blasted body, lunged
Oh wait,
into
are
the
they
veteran
resurrecting?
sergeant. The warriors on the left flank closed with the Codicia. In my shooting phase, the Termagants fired their flesh borers
That's basically
into the veterans,
Tyranids. Oh,
beetling one of them to death.
that's kind of the
In
scenario.
the combat
Got
phase,
it.
the Gene Stealers tore 3 tactical Marines to pieces and put a wound on Pablo Doublehard. Captain Invictus, calling up a
Got it.
century of combat experience, landed a wound on the hated Carnifex.
Proud of him.
Matthew's veteran sergeant deftly parried the warrior's blows and landed 5 in return, but failed to wound the creature. Overwhelmed by no less than 3 warriors, the Codicia fell, a prayer to the Emperor on his lips. In the psychic phase, I finally had the warp charge to cast Catalyst, but no eligible Tyranids were in range. Drat. In Matthew's final turn, his no doubt. And
Captain.
that brought the game to a close.
Oh,
That was tremendous fun. I've always wanted to reenact this legendary battle on the tabletop.
wait, how did we win?
And this
How
game
did the
certainly
Ultramarines
did
win?
not.
I don't. Okay. I mean, that was great. I loved it. That was great. They had to live because they're recreating a story. They survived. They just had to reach the end of turn 5. Okay, that makes sense. Survived long enough for reinforcements.
To disappoint.
Let's see what else he has to say.
The Tyranids are brutal in close combat. The Carnifex, though, was just something else. And that voltage field, well, let's just say I might not be taking that in future games. I think it's just a little bit too good. Now over to Matthew with some of his thoughts on this epic encounter.
This was an entertaining game, and I feel we did a good job of creating the narrative of the last desperate defense at the Polar Fortress.
In this story, that wasn't what happened. It's Imperial propaganda, clearly staged footage.
The Ultramarines' objective was to survive, and though they incurred heavy losses, I feel
This
like they did
message
that
has been
well.
improved by the Emperor.
In the first 2 turns, I only lost 3 Terminators, which goes to show how tough Space Marines can be. Of course, the endless refresh of Ed's forces meant I wasn't going to last forever, but at least I managed 5 turns. Notable mentions are
the caked up servitor.
Tarantula, which did a fine job of thinning the rampaging horde. I might take more in future games. The second legend here was the missile launcher guy who almost killed 2 monsters. Were it not for the voltage field, the missile launcher would have downed the Carnifex, but I guess he would have to settle for the Hive Tyrant who ate his crack missile later on. Third is Saul Invictus, who tied up a Carnifex for half the game. He only caused 1 wound, but he really held his own in close combat. And finally, the Codicia.
Is it weird to admire the cake? Hold on, what was the question? Is it weird to admire the cake of the lobotomized Robo-Man? It's like admiring the butt on a statue, I feel like.
Who pretty much eliminated a squad of Gene Stealers with his psychic power smite on the first turn.
Well, Shadow, the reason that I'm like, oh yeah, like the dice are so important again and again, is just because like I thought it was so much strategy, a lot less dice when I first got into it, but I'm being proven incorrect on that front. So
As for things I would change, not much really. The Vortex grenade never left the belt of Pablo Doublehard, which was a disappointment. The bionic arm was redundant war gear, but apart from that, the honoured first died with honour.
Before I go, I'd like to say a huge thank you to Matthew for rolling dice with me.
the strategy in contemporary editions is how you are able to modify the luck.
Be sure to check out the links to Matthew's channel and hobby Instagram in the video description. Oh, and check out the awesome portrait Matthew did of Buffy. She loves it.
Aww.
I think that just about wraps it up for this week. Thanks so much for watching, and happy hobby.
That was incredible. Minisodes, that was crazy good. I loved that. And this is Miniscape Warhammer 40. Wow. That was just, I loved that. I thought that was such a cool experience in old Warhammer. Yeah, I loved that. Yeah, what a cutie. What a cutie. Lord Captain shouting to the winds, "Where are my spreadsheets? Why can't I find them?" Miniscape paints most of the models. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the more I watch battles, the more I'm starting to understand bits and pieces of it. I know this was like an older one, but to me it's really cool to see its roots as we mentioned earlier, a game for kids, and now those kids growing up and still being into it. There's something really cool. It was also a pretty simple objective of survive for 5 turns. There's more strategy expression and things like control points. Yeah. A lot of the terminology and what these ephemerally mean carries over. Yeah, there was something really neat about that. I'm glad that we were able to watch it. Hopefully I can put this up as a react so other people can see it as well. I'm actually genuinely surprised at the fact more people aren't subbed to Minisodes. So, hi goobers, thank you so much for watching this video. I just wanted to say I have been having the time of my life learning about Warhammer 40k, putting together miniatures. We're about to start painting tomorrow when I record this. And I don't know, I can't say thank you enough for the support that you've been giving me, showing up to streams, commenting on my videos, etc., etc. I really, really appreciate it. This hobby has been just the most fun ever. So expect more videos. I'm working on Galaxy in Flames right now, reading through it and having a great time with Ben Counter's writing. So I will see you in the next video. Bye!